Hey everybody, how's it going? So in yesterday's video, someone linked me to an article in the New York Post that I thought would be interesting to read. To be clear, for those who don't follow New York City politics or journalistic outlets, the New York Times reports things with my opinion, a left-wing bias. The New York Post reports things with a considerably more right-wing bias. And if I'm being honest, I'm not putting the New York Post in the category along with stuff like the National Review. It really kind of reads a bit more like a tabloid than it does like the National Review. But I thought this would be something interesting to discuss. So it says here, Bank of America executives warn junior staffers to dress down as New York City crime surges. Now, to be clear, in the areas they're talking about, this is very close to where I work. It's very close to where my store is. And while I most certainly am not used to wearing things that cost more than a $6 shitty off-brand, no-name polo shirt where the button comes off if I literally just do this, it's not an area where I am actually scared or fear for my life or anything like that. I regularly would leave the store at 1 or 2 in the morning after a late night stream, and I don't feel bad at all about walking outside and riding my bike home at 1 or 2 in the morning, or maybe stopping to get something at one of the delis that's open 24/7 while I'm on my way home. It's just never been something that really crossed my mind. This is not an area where I am going to dress up. You know, Erica recently told me that she managed to find, while rummaging through some of her mother's things, some jewelry that she had left behind after she died, and she was asking if it was a good idea to wear it, and I'm like, no, but that's not something that really would have changed from 5 years ago to now. I don't believe in the idea of promoting that you have any sign of wealth on you when walking around a major city, particularly if you are a female. But let's just dig into this article. It says, amid a surge in some New York City violent crime, Wall Street bigwigs continue to encourage younger staffers to come into the office, but to do so with caution. At Bank of America, senior executives have quietly encouraged younger employees to, quote, dress down to attract less attention as they make their way to Bank of America's tower at 1 Bryant Park. By the way, Bryant Park is an area on around 42nd Street between 5th and 6th Avenue that when I was a kid was an absolute cesspool. I remember my father walking me through the park, and I remember him pointing to a guy that had a CD player and just saying, Lewis, watch this, because the guy was not really paying attention or aware of himself, and before I could even turn my head, there were 4 or 5 people that surrounded him, made it look like they were walking with him, and then a few seconds later, he was kind of looked a little roughed up, and he no longer had his headphones on. And a few years ago, the last time I went there, they actually had these little areas where you could get a book, and then they trusted you to bring the book back. So they gave you the book, they didn't charge you up front, and they trusted you on the honor system to bring the book back, just to give you a bit of an idea of how 30 years radically transformed that particular area. And when I used to walk through that area, I really did not feel threatened in any way, shape, or form, and honestly, I've rode my bike around there a couple of times now. I really don't feel threatened now. Those executives have told their staffers that dressing up or wearing anything with a Bank of America logo could make them a target. One bank employee told On the Money he is on high alert after he spotted someone with a knife near the office during a recent trek to the Manhattan workplace. Of course, it's not just Bank of America where worries over crime pervade. The city reported a 15% increase in felony assaults over the past 28 days as of November 28th. When compared to the same period a year ago, according to New York Police Department statistics. Murder rates have surged 42% over the past 2 years, but remain largely flat over the past year. The idea that they don't want to become a target is something that's completely understandable to me. I understand why somebody wearing a Bank of America shirt is going to be a target. You know, I remember back in the day when I was broke enough to actually have to worry about overdraft. You know, if I thought I was going to overdraft, I would put some more money in my account. And at the end of the day or the next day, I would look at my bank statement and it would show up that I overdrafted. I would get a fee, but then I went over. They always managed to come up with some way to rearrange my transaction history so that they could charge the maximum amount of overdraft fees. I'm not saying that I'm going to go up to a Bank of America employee and beat the living shit out of them on the street, but I'm not exactly looking at you with admiration when I see that you work at Bank of America either, so I can understand them saying don't wear anything on you that says Bank of America, aside from the fact that they think you're carrying money. Just the way your average American views bank executives nowadays, I don't think is something that is conducive to how do I put this? Conducive to avoiding an altercation on the street in an area that has issues. I'll leave it at that. One top executive at a large money management firm even recently began carrying a taser as he commutes to his Midtown office. A person with direct knowledge of the matter told On the Money. And after daylight savings time ended last month, more people are commuting home in the dark, giving worries over a crime a renewed focus. In areas surrounding Hudson Yards, the problem has been especially acute. For commuters coming into Penn Station or Port Authority bus terminal, walking the few blocks to the far west side after dark on largely deserted streets, except for sometimes menacing vagrants, can feel dangerous, sources told On the Money. That area is an interesting one. I did walk by there while doing a video with Erica right next to me the entire time, but I can imagine late at night that being kind of weird. Also, there is this one place around 30th Street on the walk over there called Supreme Pizza, where you had two people very recently having a knife fight where one of them, the camera resolution is way too low to see, but looks like he walked away either with his hand like half off or his finger coming off. It was really kind of freaky stuff. But that's not something that happens all the time. Okay, I just feel weird that I just kind of used that as a... It's weird because I walk by that area regularly and I don't feel weird about it, even though that just happened and I realized that it wasn't until I said it out loud that I realized how, to somebody who lives in almost any other part of the country, how fucking insane that sounds. But I guess that's just what happens when you live here long enough. Bank of America is adjacent to Times Square, and like Hudson Yards, many employees use Penn Station and Port Authority as transportation hubs en route to the office. Bank of America declined to comment for the story. Some companies like Citibank are offering employees private shuttles so they can avoid public transportation altogether. By the way, public shuttle to avoid private transportation altogether is going to add to the misery and traffic of dealing with the city. Trust me, I don't blame people for not wanting to take public transportation. I was taking public transportation from when I was 13 years old to 29. Once I got an electric motor on my bike, never again. Once you get spoiled at the idea of you actually see air and you see people, and you're not in this underground, depressing, 100-year-old, never-maintained garbage tunnel surrounded by people that look unhappy because they're stuck in the fucking tunnel with you on a train where everybody's standing like this because there's no space, you never want to go back to it again. But at the end of the day, if less people use public transit and more people start using shuttles, whether it's vans or other buses, the less people that you have below ground, the more you have above ground, and the more that you have traveling above ground, the more of a clusterfuck that the streets and traffic are going to be, which at the end of the day is not really great for anybody. And most major banks will offer employees car service if they work after hours. It's not just Midtown where crime has taken center stage. A Wall Street source who works downtown told On the Money it's been a topic of conversation on the floor frequently over the last few months. Some people I work with have been accosted. I'd say it's becoming frequent, if not common, the source said. There's probably a dozen incidents that I saw or have been involved in, the person said. Mostly verbal, but some physical, the person said. Some executives say the new state of affairs could be here to stay. Undoubtedly, part of getting people back to the office in New York City is about making the streets and the subway safer. Ron Tarassian, CEO of PR firm 5WPR, told On the Money. I would venture less than 50% of people are back to the office full-time, and I don't know if that ever changes in New York City. He said only 35% of his 275 employees are back at his firm's Park Avenue headquarters, where staffers work with people in the finance and other corporate industries. Still, some are optimistic the impending mayoral regime change could usher in a new era of safety and prosperity after the mayor-elect ran on a public safety platform. I'm encouraged that Eric Adams will take a hard line, one Wall Street executive told On the Money. But it's almost like he can't get here soon enough to restore law and order. For those who weren't following the mayoral election, Eric Adams surprised people and pissed off a lot of people because he said, yeah, like I would carry a gun around New York City nowadays. I forget the exact quote, I'm paraphrasing, was something along the lines of, yeah, I'd want to carry a gun around. And people are like, what? You can't say that! You can't say that! Guns are bad! Only criminals are allowed to have guns, not law-abiding citizens. But, I mean, when he said that, it made a lot of people that I imagine would have voted for Curtis Lee say, oh, you're not de Blasio. You're actually votable. And I think it allowed, again, Curtis Lee was going to lose anyway. He had an R next to his name. But it made Eric Adams seem a bit more in touch with the experiences of average, ordinary people. So for those who were not paying attention to the election, who live outside of New York City, who simply look at the party, Eric Adams and de Blasio are very different. Now, the way they wind up governing, who the hell knows? I have no idea. But Eric Adams is very different from Mayor de Blasio on some of these points. I think he's a little bit more attached to reality and the experiences of people that are not surrounded by fucking security. At the end of the day, I really don't know what to make of this. Again, I am on 27th Street and 7th Avenue. I do not keep a regular 9 to 5 schedule by any means. Sometimes I'm there at noon, sometimes I'm there at 1 or 2 or 3 in the morning, and I'm leaving there on my bike, and I don't really have that feeling of, I'm always looking around. I'm always when I'm, locking my store, I don't just lock my store and do this. But I've been doing that from pretty much as early as I remember. It's something that I've always done. There's no block that I've seen in Midtown where I just think to myself, I'm not walking down there. Have I seen blocks where there are a lot of homeless people? Yes. Have I seen blocks where homeless people are yelling at air? Yes, but oftentimes they're yelling at air, they're not yelling at me, and I have been here long enough to recognize that when I see a homeless person that is yelling at the air, he's not yelling at me. Even if I'm right in front of him, he would just be yelling at the air if I wasn't in front of him. And I have occasionally seen people that think, oh my God, he's yelling at me, he's going to kill me, when you could just literally remove that person from the situation and he would just continue yelling at the air. It's fairly common, and it's sad that it's fairly common, but it is. And I don't know. I'm not carrying around a taser. Again, there are weird things that happen in my area. So, for instance, just recently there was a dude, and I covered this in a video, that was going to every single car on our block and breaking the windows with a giant stick, because he is a cunt. I'm sure there'll be somebody in the comments saying that he was probably doing that just so that he could feed his family, or because he couldn't get food or some shit. But there was a guy that was just going to each car, just breaking the window. Break the window. He wasn't even stealing anything. He wasn't even looking in the cars. He was just break window next, break window next, break window next. And we followed him, and my staff followed me following him. And Steve, the manager, actually came by and took his fucking stick. What a bro. Look at this.
This guy with the stick.
I did. He smashed a few cars on the... Oh, sorry.
That was a proud moment for us. The last few times something like that happened, we did not follow him, and the police never got him, because once somebody with a vague description escapes into the subway or escapes into a store, he's gone. So we followed him because a lot of the times the police wind up not knowing who to get, and we caught him. And Steve took his stick, which I was very, very happy about. As you can see, Steve was also happy about it. But I'm like, Steve wasn't carrying a taser, he wasn't carrying a gun or anything like that, and walking through those streets was not something that a group of 20-something-year-olds that work here were like so scared of. And I think it's important to give a little bit of that perspective as well. Again, if this were the, I'm not. If you watch this channel, you certainly don't have any delusion that New York City is this magical Disney World of a place, and you probably know by now that I don't either. But at the same time, it is not the type of war zone that people will sometimes make it out to be, even though, in my opinion, in many ways, it is kind of a shithole. It's not like that. Again, I don't think my staff would have followed me out of the store to watch me follow somebody else if they believed that, they were going to get shot or something. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. What do you think of the fact that while we're trying to get people back to work, companies are utilizing private shuttles and Ubers and car services because their employees don't want to walk through Port Authority or to Penn Station because of the crap they have to deal with? Do you believe that they are being prissy, or do you believe that is reasonable? I hate to say it, it kind of sounds like, again, like Paul walks over to Penn Station every single night. He leaves the store at 7:55 every single day, and he walks over to Penn Station. I've never had Paul come over to me and say, Louis, would it be possible for you to cover a car home or get a shuttle, because I don't feel safe going through Penn Station. There is a bias there. Paul is a Marine, and he was willing to serve in the armed forces. He was willing to get deployed overseas if need be. So walking through a public train station is probably not something that he is going to cry about. But it's several people here take public transportation, and I have not had one person come up to me and say, Louis, I can't take the train. I just can't do it. They'll say from time to time, oh yeah, there was this crazy dude in the train, or there was that crazy dude in the train, but that's not really something special at this point. That is a day that ends in Y. I really think it's interesting that at the exact same time that we're trying to get a lot of people back to work so that the businesses in these areas stop suffering is the exact same time that it's more difficult to, because people don't actually want to even walk to the train station anymore in those areas. And that's going to be a difficult issue to solve. And it really does make you wonder if this is just one of the many death by 1,000 cuts to commuting to work in an office versus working from home. Think about it. I mean, it's just one of many, many reasons. If you can already do your job from home, if let's say there's two banks, one bank allows you to work from home, the other says you have to go through Port Authority bus terminal, where every single day you're going to walk past a group of people that every now and then you might see, I don't know, while you're walking down the road, you might see somebody get stabbed outside of Supreme Pizza. You're probably going to, the work from home is already a cool option because you don't have to commute. You don't have to deal with the rat race. You get to deal with your own home office, which is nicer. That's just the cherry on top that you don't have to deal with the rest of the crap. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. And remember, don't try this at home. Don't try to steal the nut job stick at home. Leave that to uncertified laptop repair professionals. See you next time.